So one of the biggest challenges that I run into, because we do a lot of lead generation for various types of businesses. And so one thing I often say before we sign somebody up is like, hey, getting the lead is usually not the hardest part. The hardest part might be making the sale. And so, we're going to run ads that are ideal for finding the people that are most interested, but still, you got to make the sale, right? And so I have found that over and over, most businesses, they've invested a lot in their vehicle. They've invested a lot in equipment. They've invested a lot in learning how to do their trade, learning how to do their job. They've invested a lot in employees. They've invested a lot in so many things. And yet very few have invested very much, if anything, into sales training. And obviously, this is one of the biggest levers that you can pull in any business, because just increasing a closing percentage by a small amount can have such a huge impact. I mean, think about it. Think if you're let's say you do bathroom remodels and your average ticket is $20,000 and you go into 20 estimates per month and you're selling two. Getting just a little bit better, selling three, suddenly just increased your, just getting one better per month, increased your annual revenue by about $250,000. And I find that like this is sometimes the lowest hanging fruit. That oftentimes businesses might be getting estimates, they might be doing things they might be doing activity that's getting them in front of people, but when the time comes to actually make the sale, they aren't handling it in a way that is conducive to getting a sale. They don't have a structure to it. They have nothing that's measurable. And so at the end of the day, a lot of folks think, hey, I'm actually really good at sales, when really what they are is they're good at taking orders from people who have already decided that they want to buy. And so a lot of folks in the businesses that we work with, and we're talking about businesses that are $1 million to $3 million, for example, they've gotten that big because they're good at what they do and people like them. And so therefore they get referrals and they kind of keep growing that way. But they don't realize that a referral is already far more likely to work with you just because their sister told them how good you were, their neighbor said how good you were. And so they're already pre-closed by the time that you're talking to them. And so obviously, if you're getting leads from somewhere else, these are people that are not pre-closed. If you're buying leads because, you're running ads online or something like that, these are not people who are predisposed towards working with you. And so it's really up to you to have a sales process that does a good job. So I've done a lot of sales coaching over the years, and this is the graphic that I always use. And most of the coaching I've done is with folks who are in the business of a sales presentation that we're talking usually somebody's going to make the buying decision either on a one call close, or maybe there's going to be a little bit of follow-up. And so if you are in a business that has a 6-month sales cycle, the same things that I'm going to talk about right now have to happen. They just might take 6 months, versus 45 minutes. But I initially built this as, what I call like the most perfect estimate or the most perfect consultation. And it kind of depends what we're talking about, right? Like if you're in construction, you're doing an estimate. If you're an accountant, you're doing a consultation, whatever the case might be. So, but we're talking about you're sitting down to do your sales presentation, or you're in somebody's living room, or they're in your office, or whatever the case might be. This is the structure that I've taught a lot of people. And so I'm just going to go through it briefly. I've built a 2-day training course on this. And so I'm going to try to get this done in the next 5 minutes. But I call it the sales roller coaster because at the end of the day, all sales, you included, all purchases that people make are emotionally based. And you might think that, no, I'm the most rational person alive. All of my decisions are, they're all rational. They're all numbers based. Nope, they're still emotional. Even if everything you do is based off of the ROI and the numbers, there is an emotion that goes with that. There is an emotional satisfaction that you get from being somebody who can make decisions based off of numbers. And so at the end of the day, every single decision that you're going to make and that your customers are going to make is an emotional decision. And so not the only way, but the best way to help your customers make the decision of whether or not to work with you, because, and I notice I said not, because sometimes they shouldn't work with you. Sometimes you're not the right match, for what they're looking to solve. And so they shouldn't. And the sales process should be able to bring that out ethically and yeah, properly. Anyways. And anyways, I call this the sales roller coaster because in a good sales presentation, we are taking somebody on a roller coaster of emotion where we're helping them see, in a way, the actual problem that they're in and the experience they could have if we help them solve that problem. And this is critical because most people have not done the work to understand the actual problem that they're in. Think about whatever you're selling. Think about anytime you're trying to sell it to somebody, they don't know as much about that thing as you know about that thing, obviously. If they did, you guys wouldn't be in a sales conversation. They don't know as much. And so they haven't done the internal work. They haven't done the research. They haven't done this. And you're going to obviously know that a lot of people, you've had a million buyers and sometimes they're more prepared, sometimes less prepared. But they often do not have an understanding of the trouble that they're in if they do not solve their problem. And of course, here I'm talking about, sales that have higher stakes. If you're trying to sell, a little bit of a car wash, it probably doesn't have that big of stakes, and it's a $20 thing or a $40 thing or a $60 thing or whatever. The stakes aren't that big. You're not going to be using as much emotion. But if we're talking, the types of things that we deal with, the types of clients we deal with, where they're selling something that's $2,000, $20,000, $200,000, the stakes are much bigger. And so the problem that they're in and not having your solution is one of the biggest reasons why people don't close enough deals. And let me dig in just a little bit on that. Most of the time, when people are not closing the deal at the end of the conversation, it's not from a lack of dealing with concerns at the end, dealing with doubts, doubt resolution, stuff like that. Although that can be important. Most of the time, they have not done a good enough job of turning the magnifying glass onto their prospect's pain, onto their prospect's problem. And so the prospect does not realize what they're missing out on and the pain that they're actually in. And you would think, well, they're going to know. They're the one experiencing it. But they don't. We don't. As people, we don't. You're an expert in your field, but there's so many things that you are doing wrong, and it could be in a variety of different areas. You might be a genius accountant, but like your health might be bad. You might have great health and a great business, but your leadership is bad, or your lead generation is bad. No one's perfect at everything, right? No one's even expert at everything. No one's even really good at everything. And so all of us have areas in our lives, whether it's health, wealth, or relationships, all of us have areas in our lives where we're really struggling and we're not doing well. And we might not even recognize it because we don't understand how the pieces fit together. We don't understand in a health case, oh, I'm feeling this way because of what I'm doing with sugar. We don't even recognize it. We've grown used to this like malaise at 3 p.m. and falling asleep, and we've grown used to it. So we don't recognize like what it's like. And again, I said health, wealth, and relationships because that's where, most of our clients live, in the health, wealth, or relationship space. From a wealth standpoint, maybe your client doesn't realize, hey, if I don't do this thing with my money now, I'm not going to have enough to retire with. Or with relationship, hey, if I don't solve this issue of only having 3 bedrooms when we need 4, it's going to put a strain on us when we go to have another kid, or when mother-in-law wants to move in, or whatever the case might be. So at the end of the day, people have done enough work to realize that they have a problem. That's why they're in the conversation with you. That's why they're in the sales presentation. But most people have not done enough work internally, research, etc., to understand the depth of the problem that they're in and what life could be like if they could improve that. And at the end of the day, most of that comes from questions. And so you'll see on this graph here, is this a graph? Yeah, on this graph, you'll see as it starts, where is the person associating the weight of the problem? Are they feeling, oh my gosh, this problem is so big? Or are they feeling, oh, this problem's not that big at all? Our job is to help them understand, hey, this problem is probably deeper than you thought. And that comes from questions. And so you see immediately, the emotion drops. And so we ask them questions about their problems. What's going on? Why is it going on? How long has it been going on? What are you losing as a result? What could you be having if you didn't have this problem, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Helping them see, like, wow, there is far more going on than you probably have realized. And then we transition. We transition by figuring out what have they done that hasn't worked so far, and are they willing to make changes? And then from there, we go into the hero solution. Now, the hero solution is just my way of describing what it is you do. And your hero solution might be, that bathroom remodel. Your hero solution might be that tax preparation service combined with monthly bookkeeping for business owners. Your hero solution might be, that workout and diet plan to help somebody do this, that, or the other. Your hero solution can be a variety of different things, right? But we have to present it in a way that it hits every point that they told us. Hey, you're having this problem that's causing this. Well, this part of the hero solution solves that. You're having this problem that causes that. Well, this part of the hero solution solves that. You're having this problem that causes that. Well, this solves that. And then at the end, we stack and we quote. We say, hey, all right, so the solution has this, and it has this, and it has this, and that's what's going to do, and it's going to cost $10,000. Then we realize, hey, we've been building them up. This whole time we've been building them up, and we've been helping them understand, like, hey, life gets so much better if we solve this problem for you. And then when we hit them with the price, it might feel like a lot to them. And so emotionally, they might drop. And so that's where we can help them, work through that with any sort of risk reversal, guarantees, testimonials, that type of thing, and any sort of doubt resolution, that type of thing. So anyways, the point being, I have taught this structure to, I don't know how many dozens of salespeople around the world. And I'm not here to say it's the best. It's something that I've come up with over the years, and I think it's really good. Is there something better out there? Probably. But let me just say this. If you're one of these business owners that doesn't do any sales training, starting with a structure to train against is one of the first things. A structure, a framework, a process, a style, some sort of thing that you are going to do that you can test against. Because one of the things that I found is that even a structure that's not perfect, a framework that's not perfect, because there's no perfect framework, but like even a framework that's not perfect is far better than a complete lack of framework, which is far better than a complete lack of framework times however many salespeople you have in your organization. It's one thing to not have a framework. It's another thing to not have a framework and have 5 sales guys out there, doing estimates, for example. And so start with a framework. I like to present this one because it's simple, it's easy to understand, but maybe there's another one that you like. Whatever it is, start with a framework and use it religiously. Train against it. Weekly meetings, monthly check-ins. Use it religiously and train against it. And you will find that when you have a system and a framework that you're training against, that the chances of people closing the deal goes up just because they're following something. Like I say, you'll find it's far better than nothing. So good luck. And if you need help with a framework, reach out to us. We're happy to help you with ours.